Almost a decade ago, I dug out a waka, a dugout from a log in the forest. It was a totara that fell down and made a big clearing. Just a beautiful thing about succession in a forest. Eventually these big climax, well, totara don't quite belong in the climax, but close to long life perennial tree. They eventually, for some reason or other, through natural causes, human causes, or just old age decay, they fall over and create these big clearings in a forest that otherwise is too dark and stagnant for any new generations to come through. And they fall over and make a big clearing, and then you have ferns and titoki and five finger and all these little pioneers that come in really quickly, panga. And so I made a dugout, 5.5 meters, and it's really fun. You can surf it, and I've for the first time gone yesterday with my little baby alone, and launched it into the estuary and had a paddle and came back all in 20 minutes, which is about the time frame you can sort of expect from a toddler. And that got me to thinking, I actually want to do another one, but like a baby version. So this totara that came from a development in Kamo, thanks to Sean, is going to be this very small dugout for a toddler, maybe like a 5-year-old to handle, maybe 2 5-year-olds. So one day, this is going to be my new boat, and I just wanted to show one little thing. I was explaining to a friend, Jared, how the way that the tree faces the sun, hopefully you can see it, the contrast isn't too great. Here the pith of the tree is way off center, so you got all this growth ring pile up here, so probably ultra dense, and then spreading out the other side. And if I'd had the presence of being there, and also the presence of mind if I was the one cutting the tree, I would make a mental note of why that was, what side that was, and where the sun was in relation to the tree, maybe the prevalent wind. But I think if I was going to make this into the boat, my hunch would be that I would chop through here and make that the bottom of the hull. But I think as I cut this up into a square shape, with advantage of the sawmill, I'm going to do that. And that'll give me much more of an assessment of where the roots are, where the branches are, where the knots are. And maybe my observation holds true, or actually turns out that now this is a terrible way to lay the log to cut it. But anyway, this is my sawmill setup here, and it's all very frugal. I have a 24 horsepower John Deere tractor to move things around. I have an electric Nissan Leaf to move logs from a further distance if I need to pick them up, and a 1,500 kilo single axle trailer. So everything's very limited. My current project that I'm up to is cutting timber framing from my parents' house. I want to make them a little 30 square meter building. It looks sort of a bit archetypal sort of timber framing. And these 6x6s, which I decided was the nicest look. I tried 5x5 and they felt too minimalist for a timber frame. So these 6x6s are what that's going to be from. All this is from a forestry down the road, conveniently only about 2 kilometers away. So easy distance for my limited hauling abilities. I've got a collection of silky oak here. Silky oak turns out to be actually a really great timber, supposedly. It used to be what joinery was made out of, like windows and doors, because it's quite rot resistant. It looks very similar to Banksia, has a very woven grain. The way that it interweaves looks a bit like a mat, like a fiberglass cloth or something. I've also got more collection of totara. You can see this totara was one of those. Totara is an amazing tree, actually, the way it's so versatile to its environment. So you might know it as a paddock totara, so a tree with all the branching out branches. Yeah. And otherwise in the forest, any kind of dark environment, it goes straight as an arrow, big solid trunks. And other way that you see it often is it looks like a celery kale. So lots of individual trunks going up, and that's what that was from. Hence the curves to them. So the neat thing is, I'll show you this little, sorry, the contrast is looking really bad. This little banana grass circle that my father has got going on. It was planted to hide a bell tent from the weather, but the bell tent completely disintegrated in a big storm, and now we just have a big circle. And this totra was milled on the flat with a curve in a way that the sawmill could take these long curving planks off, and it turns out to be a similar circumference to this plant circle. So it makes a really nice bench that curves with a space. And also, if you have two of them, they kind of, you can bookend them so they actually look like a Gothic arch. Really neat things that you can do with a bandsaw. Also, to finish off the log tour, these are the kind of macrocarpas that I'm getting from this forestry. They were rejects. They didn't make it for the pulp or the milling. And so instead of wasting them, the owner was very happy for me to come and grab them, and he's got a few more for me to go get. These are some of my gums that I'm milling. All these gums grew like these here, and extremely marginal. A single line on a big ridge with a big southerly wind that comes from there, with the sun on the opposite side of that. So you've got tension from the wind, you've got branches growing out towards the north. It's a single line, so they have a lot of pressure on them, and they've never been limbed partly because they were meant to be shelters. So kind of the worst of the worst, but funnily enough, I've been getting really okay results from it. You can see different kinds of patterns. Like this one I think is going to be an interesting one, the way it's breaking up in sort of like a hexagon grid pattern there. Not sure what's going on there. Then you've got this other type where the cracking happens mainly on one side. That's a pith going on there. So this is obviously a branch. I can't expect much from this, but sometimes it surprises you. And almost like a leaf pattern, the way it comes out. That's more supposedly the archetypal good way to split. That shows that there's even tension throughout the log. But these are mostly stuff that almost was going to end up being firewood. So if I get one or two sort of little stepping bridges over streams and stuff out of it, I'm happy. To give you an idea though what comes out, this is my sawmill setup. But to give you an idea, these are the more marginal planks that I've got out of it. You can see them splitting at the ends. So that's why they're on the reject side. That was, funnily enough, this was coming off a log that I got from the forestry. And these splits were pretty chronic throughout it. Lots of defects throughout it. So this was actually limbed by a machine, by staff at the right timing, in big blocks of trees. So in theory it should be better. Here's some more 6x6s off the macrocarpa. But here you can see the planks that I'm getting off the mill from my gum. So some of them are going to not be any good for decking because of things like that in the middle. But also surprisingly decent results. This is just laid out in the sun. I haven't put it away yet. And it's going to be ripped up with a 40-volt battery skill saw that I found to be the best way to deal with flat planks coming off the sawmill, off a bandsaw. Rolling logs on the bandsaw is a real pain, takes time. So I've just been doing rift sawing, and actually that works quite well. You end up with, if you want it, quarter sawn boards down the middle of the log, and on top and bottom you get rift sawn, or flat sawn. So I'm pretty happy with that setup. I can show you that in another video. Just to show you my setup on the saw. So it's on a slope, just going slightly down, which aids in getting these logs down by hand, down to the mill. And then I've made myself these tracks, and they have regular intervals holes where I can put a rebar spike in there to keep my log from going off by itself. And then I've bolted these little arms on, and that allows me to roll my log seamlessly onto the sawmill. and then obviously up onto the jacks, onto the uprights, and then all my refuse, I have a really handy spot here to throw it on, and then I can come here with my corded electric chainsaw and cut it all up into firewood, and I can pull up a trailer here quite conveniently, throw all the firewood in, and then I have built a firewood drying shed entirely out of this eucalyptus from my earlier milling times with it. Also, there's a driveway that comes around the back down here. So I'm thinking when my firewood shed is full, I'm going to start stacking this the same way that I've got that stacked back there, and then have a little metal chute made out of tin roofing and shoot it down into a trailer down there, and then haul that wood back out of here. So yeah, really simple, down to earth, just working with what I've got. My sawmill is a Woodland HM130. I actually quite enjoyed. I struggled with the learning curve a little bit. Some things I had wobble cuts happening, so the blade traveling up and down a little bit. And then I got on some forums and asked questions and found that the problem was most likely my blade not being fully parallel to the bunk of the sawmill, and that seems to have fixed it to a large extent. I still get the odd one where I hit a knot, and I think that might sort of just be the problem with bandsaws, and the problem specifically, I think Wood-Mizer has solved that by having a different blade alignment system with the wheels that keeps the blade under more tension and flatter. But yeah, just wanted to show you all my mill and my setup and what I'm about, and my big longer term goal that I'd like to do is I would like to build a boat with timber that I've milled. So get up, I'm Floki, boat builder, the nutcracker. Any problem that arises, I just mull it over in my mouth, play with it with my tongue, flip it round, try and find its weak spots. Frugality is a really big word for me, but also operating within your means and not always trying to expand your operation to its nth degree, but actually organically grow it as you find that certain avenues are more interesting. So part of that is finding timber species that are usable. Eucalyptus was told to me to be a terrible tree, really difficult, and I found it to be okay. I just use it within the means that it allows me to. I'm really happy using timber straight off the mill. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, keep watching this channel. And what I would like to do at some point is find enough macrocarpa heartwood and mill enough planks and dry them and layer them that in about 10 years I can build myself a very large double hull waka out of trees. So hope you enjoyed this video and my little tour, and I'll try and update you regularly with what I'm up to. Partly this is also a record for myself so that I can look back and see some of the theories that I engaged with about how a timber would behave on the mill, how it would dry, and how it would handle various conditions. I want to get into finding different trees, like for example I'm interested in poplar, cypresses, I'm also interested in flame tree, which is very fast growing here, Japanese cedar, Tasmanian blackwood, eucalyptus, maybe paulownia. Lots of trees that I can get a hold of and then make little spikes, nail them to various locations, put them in the ground in various conditions, boggy, dry, constantly wet, things like that, alternating wet, dry, and just go around on a regular basis, maybe once a year, and take a little documentation of the condition of those bits of wood to give an idea to myself in retrospect, but also to anyone who's interested in following what timbers do once they're off the mill and drying and various. Can't be fully scientific, there's too many variables, but yeah, it'll be fun. So thanks for watching.